This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. The Father's complete and unconditional approval of his Son. And in light of this feast of the baptism of our Lord, this evening I'd like to speak about a rather delicate and maybe even sensitive subject: the human need for approval. Our human need, our desire for approval. After we're physically satisfied, our needs with food, our clothing, our shelter, we want something a little bit more. There's still a hunger or a desire in us, and one of the things we naturally desire is the approval, our respect of others. Children, they're always eager to have their parents or their teachers' approval. The elderly, they want their measure of respect for their past contributions or maybe the things that they have to offer now. And even that person who says, "I don't care what other people think about me," they usually have some person or maybe a group of people that they want to please. We all desire or want that need for approval. But sometimes we conclude that this desire for approval, it might even be just vanity on our part. But it's not necessarily so. In fact, C.S. Lewis once commented on that parable which concludes, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And he made this observation. He said, "No one can enter heaven except as a child, and nothing is so obvious in a child as his or her great and undisguised pleasure at being praised." But of course, with this approval, it can be very natural to also fall into a little bit of danger. Sometimes we can fall into that trap of thinking, if only people would appreciate me, then I'd be happy. If only people would appreciate me, then I'd be happy. However, if that admiration of others automatically brought happiness, then the happiest people in the world would be living in Hollywood. Hardly anyone on the planet gets more admiration than they do. And are they happy when we look at those people? Are they happy in their lives? The problem with other people's admiration is that it's kind of fickle. It changes. Those who have won great popularity, movie stars, politicians, sports heroes, often feel this insecurity because they know one moment people love them, and tomorrow it's a completely different story. Still, this does not mean that the desire for praise or approval, it's wrong in itself. Let me make a comparison. The tsunami pulls a woman out to sea, and she manages to climb onto some floating debris, and she kept herself alive by chewing on the branch in order to get moisture. A week passed before she was rescued, and as you might imagine, she was extremely thirsty. Even though she was surrounded by tons of water, she knew that if she drank that water from the sea, she would always be desiring and thirsty. It wouldn't satisfy her quench. Still, that doesn't mean that fresh, drinkable water doesn't exist. You and I, we're thirsty for approval, but the world, it can't give it to us. If we drink a little of what this world offers, it only makes us more and more thirsty. We desire something else. We want more. But true water, it does exist. We have a clue in this Sunday's gospel. When Jesus was baptized, he heard a voice which said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." By us joining ourselves to Christ, we gain the approval which counts. The approval of others is good, but it only points to an acceptance which will last. We have that approval right now by virtue of our own baptism. And on today's feast of our Lord's baptism, I'd like to make a suggestion to all you parents here tonight. One of the most meaningful things that you can do is to tell your children about the day of their baptism. Tell them how they were dressed. Tell them who their godparents were. Tell them how they reacted when the water was poured over their head. Tell them who the deacon or priest was who baptized them. Tell them about the candle that they received and the things you did before and after, the ceremonies that followed their baptism. Any detail you can remember about that day that your children were baptized, even if your kids are teenagers, even if they're an adult today, tell them about their baptism. And above all, let them know on that day of their baptism was spoken those most beautiful words. "This is my beloved Son. This is my beloved daughter, with whom I am well pleased."